guys, welcome back. This is Digital Media Convergence Lesson 22. This lesson will be focusing on digital tools available for radio content creation, distribution, and consumption. So this is part 2 of the two-part lecture. Alright, a quick recap from Lesson 21, the lesson before this obviously. We looked to develop a critical understanding of the various podcast digital tools and platforms, when to use which tool/platform, and how to best use each tool/platform. Then we looked at developing an understanding of what to keep in mind when producing a podcast. That is very important, all right? I think majority of my students are very much capable in navigating through software. Your generation tends to be quite savvy, a lot more than me. Actually, my students have definitely taught me a thing or two. But this is very important for you guys. It is something new that is being introduced to you. All right. So moving on to this lesson's objectives, we're going to critically evaluate various digital tools available for the radio content creation, distribution, and consumption. We're going to understand the importance of planning and professionalism when conducting an interview. And then finally, understand and evaluate the practical application of various podcast distribution platforms. So as mentioned in the previous lesson, this is going to be a peer-to-peer lesson, meaning my students will be teaching one another, which is going to be quite enjoyable for me. I get to sit back and experience this. So you guys are going to share resources on the following. So you're going to share great podcasts you've listened to. Why do you like listening to these? And be specific, please. Then what is important when planning a podcast? What editing software do you use and what tips can you share? And then finally, which hosting and distribution platforms do you use and what tips and tricks can you share? So obviously during class, I will allow you guys each to discuss these points briefly, and then we'll move on to the next student and go forth like that. But what I have done also is I have also included own little take here. I thought it would be quite interesting. It also helps with a little bit of a conversation starter for my shyer students. So here's the lecturer's take on those questions. So, great podcasts you've listened to. Monsters Who Murder. That is definitely my favorite podcast and has been for years. Why do you like listening to these? So, yeah, I've said I have a great interest in criminology, and this is one of the leading research criminologists in the world. She has an interesting take and is very informative. So her podcast is extremely educational, which I'm obviously very interested in, considering the fact that I'm in the education field. But also having an interest in criminology does help, and it's nice to kind of hear the perspective. So obviously they go over their lives, they go over the events that have led them to being on this podcast, but they also dissect it in a very scientific manner. So that's quite enjoyable for me to hear. And then what is important when planning a podcast? So for me, it is to ensure that you're able to build on the topic. A one-hit wonder won't get you far. All right. That is something really important. I think a lot of people overlook. It is one thing to have a great discussion with your friend or to have this interesting factoid tidbit that gets people talking, but are you able to create a podcast with it? So in one of our previous lessons, we looked at a few tips and tricks from one of the authors where they said it's the 100 episode rule. Do you see that topic or that genre or that theme carrying for 100 episodes? Okay. Again, because the success of a podcast is the longevity of it also. Not just how viral can it go, how long the longevity of it. Can you keep that podcast going for a few years, or will it only be extremely popular for 4 months and then disappear? All right. So yeah, can you build on your topic? Also, if you can't create 100 episodes with that topic, are you able to reach out, thus reaching that 100 episodes? Okay, that kind of thing. And then what editing software do you use and what tips can you share? Myself, I have actually used Anchor for my honors degree assignment. I did it on addiction, and I actually interviewed a friend of mine who was struggling with addiction and still does struggle with addiction, unfortunately. But my research was on addiction and things like that, so it actually suited very well. It was also a nice way for my lecturers to kind of get more of a take on what it was that I wanted them to focus on, and also to experience me as an individual. So yes, I did get a lot of great feedback on that. So that's also why podcasts are so nice. Again, we said earlier, it gives you an opportunity, or in the previous lesson, it gives you an opportunity for your personality and values to shine through, and it really does. Okay. The tip that I can give you is that you need to watch the time limits on any software that you're using to record. I unfortunately got caught with that. I didn't check my time limit. I went over, it stopped recording, and I then carried on speaking and interviewing my friend for another 45 minutes after that. And unfortunately, I did lose that information. So please make sure that you double check how much time you can actually record for. And if you need to go over time, make sure you stop it and start a new episode, or however it is that you choose to go about it. All right, which hosting and distribution platforms do you use, and what tips and tricks can you share? So again, I stuck with Anchor. You can actually edit a lot of your recordings on there, but a good one to use is Audacity, which is great. We have recommended it to you guys. And then a good tip that I can give you is that a good intro sometimes can make or break your podcast. From personal experience, me just listening to podcasts, I am a big fan of listening to podcasts. If the intro doesn't really catch me, or the description kind of seems a bit bland, I'm not really likely to listen to it. And that's definitely something that you need to focus on. It's that first impression. So you need to create that great first impression, and then you need to learn how to hold your audience, and then have them subscribe and return, and how to keep your podcast going for years. Does sound like a lot of work, but obviously the only way to eat a horse is one bite at a time, kind of thing. All right. And that is it for this lesson. I know it was a very short lesson, but obviously when we're conducting the classes, all our students are then going to have a chance and opportunity to discuss the information. All right. And if you are watching the recorded version of this, obviously if you're hearing me say this, please make sure that you go over those questions, you write them down, and you plan them. I would honestly say take advantage of it and start doing your assignment podcast, the planning and things like that. Get that out of the way, get ahead of the work. It's definitely going to help you in the future. I know it feels like a drag right now. You just want to get through the lesson. I promise you, starting now is the best idea you will have the whole semester. All right, in the next lesson, we will attempt to compile your website while watching a Wix tutorial, and then we will develop an understanding of a well-designed website versus a poorly designed website. So that'll be quite interesting. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and again, I encourage you to please start with your assignments and have a great day.